From script to screen, every film is brought to life by visionary creatives and executives, all sharing one mission: to captivate the audience. Hosted by award-winning movie strategist Kevin Goetz, our podcast, Don't Kill the Messenger, offers a filmmaking masterclass through intimate conversations with Hollywood's most influential voices. And now, your host, Kevin Goetz.
Before joining me at Screen Engine, my guest today capped two remarkable careers, one as a prominent advertising executive in Chicago, and another one as a leading marketing executive in Hollywood at Disney, Sony, and MGM, helping launch hundreds of films and redefining how movies are sold around the world. Before becoming president and COO of Screen Engine, he came to meet with me at my office as a consultant. I was sitting behind my desk, and he was across from me. But I'd been so used to him being my revered client, I actually felt uncomfortable sitting there. So I made him switch chairs with me. Today, Bob Levin is my ideal counterpart, and together we've built an award-winning global insights, data, and strategy firm serving the entertainment industry and beyond. He's also my collaborator on my upcoming book, How to Score in Hollywood, my partner in crime, and a great and dear friend, Bob Levin. So excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. I think I just listened to my eulogy or something. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your humble beginnings because there's so much to capture here. So I want to say that this is an extraordinary sort of third act of a career because you had a full, almost 20-year career in advertising in Chicago.
Right.
What did you do there?
I graduated college at the University of Illinois with a degree in advertising from the journalism school, not the business school. Wanted to be a writer at that point in the advertising agency business. Got a job at the hottest agency in America at that point, Doyle, Dane, Bernbach in New York, at $50 a week. That was Volkswagen and Levy's Rye Bread and all those great campaigns. And I couldn't take the job because it was...
Hold on, I was going to say, those great campaigns, Volkswagen and Levy's Rye Bread.
Well, there were a whole bunch of other things. But I couldn't take it because it was $50 a week. And I was getting married right out of college to Bonnie. So I had to take a job, and I took a job as a catalog copywriter at Sears, Roebuck & Company when they had all the big catalogs. And first day at the job, I went to lunch with guys who had been there 10, 15 years, and they were all talking about how much they hated their job, and they couldn't wait to get them. Oh my God, that was the catalog. There was no other catalog. Am I right? That was it. The Christmas wish book. But I wound up in the hardware department writing for tool and die sets, and I had no idea what a tool and die set even was.
And you wrote like copy?
Copy, yeah. They had a whole system. They had a whole crazy system.
How'd you get elevated from that?
Well, I had this lunch, and these guys are going, I can't wait to get out of here. This is a horrible place. And I realized unless I did something to get out of there, I was going to be there 10 or 15 years and sitting one of those guys. So I immediately started looking for a job and found a job at the Natural Gas Pipeline Company of America as a public relations and advertising assistant. And then Vietnam hit. I had to go into the National Guard to escape the draft, so I left for 6 months.
That was clever. You never had to leave the United States.
I never had to leave the United States, but I had to live through the 68 National Convention.
Oh, you've told me that. That's some serious stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. I had to live through all of if you look at the old pictures, the riots. I was one of those guys with a bayonet in front of the Conrad Hilton Hotel, separating the police from the demonstrators.
How many demonstrators did you take down?
None. It was really bad. It was a very bad era for me, and eventually history when those kids got shot at Kent State.
Oh, boy.
And they were going to call us out to go to Northwestern. We're very divergent from what you asked the question, but I said, I can't go anymore. I can't do it. My conscience had just gotten to me. And thank God my conscience wasn't tested and that we never went to Northwestern. So I went to work for them. Eventually, when I came back from basic training, I was looking to get into the advertising agency business. And fortunately, because I was a public relations person by title at this natural gas pipeline company of America, an agency needed a public relations guy. And I took a job at an ad agency as their public relations person and quickly turned that into a job in account management.
Where?
A small boutique agency called Rink Wells. And then I
kind of learning all this stuff I didn't know about, all these smaller jobs to get to becoming a real account manager at a major firm.
Right. And then I moved from there to another very hot agency that was doing things like Screaming Yellow Zonkers and all these.
How much are you making at this point a week?
My first paycheck as a catalog copywriter, you got paid in cash. And if you're a college graduate, you get lined up in front of the paymaster every week, and they give you an envelope with your pay in it.
You only see that in old movies.
I know. And I took home $96 a week.
Well, it was better than the 50, as you said.
Yeah.
Now, did Bonnie work?
Yeah, she was a teacher.
And you started a family not too far thereafter.
Yes, I was a very young dad. I was a dad at 23.
Wow, and you had Jordan.
And I had Jordan.
Jordan Levin, who would become the head of the WB network.
Right.
And then, of course, Lee. And then later on, after a second wife, Spencer.
Yeah.
Who is a terrific guy.
Well, thank you. They're all terrific. So that led to me getting offered a job at McCann Erickson. And that started my career in the big agency business. My big agency experience was McCann and then Needham, Harper and Steers, which became
Needham.
DDB Needham.
Aha.
So I'm eventually a management supervisor, which is the highest level of account management at Needham at that point, managing the Sears account when Sears was a huge account. It was a huge
So you went from Sears to Sears.
Back to Sears. So I went from Sears as a catalog copywriter into the Sears boardroom.
Well, so this is the Dick Cook story. And I think you heard my Dick Cook episode where he started as a monorail or steam engine operator and then became a head of the studio.
Yeah.
So you had a friend in college, a good friend, Rich Frank. He was such a good friend that you were the best man at his wedding.
I was best man at his wedding.
One day you get a phone call.
Right. So I'm at Needham and I get a phone call and it's Rich and he says, "How you doing?" And I don't know if you're aware, but I just went with Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg from Paramount over to Disney. And we're looking for someone to come in and run worldwide marketing for the movie studio. Do you know anybody? And I didn't particularly like LA as a place to come to. And I wasn't one of those film fans that was just, oh my God, this is the best job that could ever happen. So I said, well, I'll look around. And he said, okay. And he would call me back 2 or 3 times. And he tells the story that about the 3rd or 4th time he called, I asked, well, what does that job pay? And he said, well, if you want to know what that job pays, get on an airplane, come out here and talk to Michael and Jeffrey. And I came out and talked to Michael and Jeffrey and came away with the idea of, well, I got to take this job. I mean, this is like an unbelievable opportunity.
What was the pay?
$250,000 a year.
What were you making a year at that point?
170.
Okay, so it was not a huge, but it was a huge.
It was a big
plus
deal.
Bonuses, let's face it.
Plus bonuses, plus stock. I mean, the stock options were crazy.
But remember where Disney was at that point. Let's remind our listeners.
I think at that point when I joined, it was $8 a share. And it split like 5 times, I think.
And how about the fact that Disney was about to go through the Renaissance?
Yes.
And you were about to be part of it.
Yes.
That is so exciting. What was that like for you?
Well, it was an amazing period of time because here you had this very strong entertainment brand name, Disney, that had lied sort of fallow since Walt Disney had died. It had just been maintained. It hadn't had much growth. And in come this incredible cadre of leadership from Paramount who inherit the name and have all the opportunity to try to grow it and brought in an entire new team of executives. So it was like a bunch of new hotshots inheriting this great brand name and no one dragging you. No one said, well, we don't do it that way here. None of that stuff that so often happens.
New frontier.
New frontier. We were all excited. We're working our asses off and loving what we were doing and having great success almost out of the box, which was...
What were the early successes?
Well, I remember the first movie that I was fully involved with from production all the way through was Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Oh, the best.
You know, Bette Midler and Nick Nolte and Richard Dreyfuss. And I remember sitting at the old Bruin Theater opening night, Friday night, Jeffrey Katzenberg sitting next to me on the bench in the old Bruin Theater, and there's a line around the block. And he says, don't get used to this. This isn't the way it normally happens. So enjoy this success, but get ready for this not to happen. And I think, as I recall, we had almost 17 straight successes after that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable run.
I mean, come on. And we're talking Little Mermaid.
Beauty and the Beast. We're talking The Lion King. We're talking Pretty Woman. We're talking
Big Business.
Dead Poets Society.
Ruthless People.
I mean, just a run of just great
Unbelievable.
movies.
And you were really a tremendous part of that.
Well,
you then stay there for 11 years.
Yes, I stayed there and lived through the Shakespearean drama, as I like to refer to it, when Frank Wells, who I always said was sort of the fulcrum that kept a bunch of egos
in check.
Thank you. And when he was killed, sort of things went a little haywire.
He was killed in a helicopter crash.
Crash, snow skiing, and the helicopter didn't make it off the mountain. But things sort of got out of check. Jeffrey and Michael started to go at each other. There was an undercurrent with Roy Disney, and eventually Michael fired Jeffrey, and things started to change. Joe Roth came in to head the studio. Joe Roth and I did not get along well. I was out.
Michael didn't let you go, though.
No, Michael called me in the office and he said, I don't know what to do. You've been a great head of marketing, but I just brought in Joe to run the studio, and he doesn't want you to be his head of marketing, but I don't want you to leave the company. So I went on Michael's staff. And
How long did that last?
Well, it lasted a year. I'm not a staff person.
No.
And so I started to look for something else, and an opportunity opened up at Columbia, Sony Pictures Entertainment, to come in and run worldwide marketing.
Who did you succeed?
Sid Ganis.
Aha. And you were there for 4 or 5 years. You had a good run there. I mean, you had...
First $1 billion box office year the studio ever had. Walked in on Jerry Maguire, and we just had, great many successes.
I know too much about you, and I know which stories are interesting, but just take a couple here. Let's take Jerry Maguire. Not the easiest marketing exercise right out of the gate. One would think so. It was a bit of a feathered fish, wasn't it?
Yes. And when I walked in, the basic strategy was selling it primarily as a sports movie built around this agent. And I saw it differently. I saw it more as built around the Jerry Maguire character and his search for identity, and that it had some humor in it, but it was also a really good romantic story. And I saw a real opportunity to get both a male and female audience in, change the strategy. Also, there was a great moment there because I had worked on several movies with Tom at Disney, and I was the new guy in town at Sony, and he showed up for a marketing meeting unannounced. And he walked in and embraced me.
Let me guess, threw his arms around you.
Threw his arms with a big hug.
He's the best.
So, Bob, I'm so happy you're here. Well, it was like I was a made man. Tom Cruise says, I'm so happy I'm here. I was like a made man. It really elevated people to think, well, this guy may have something. And we went on with great success with Jerry Maguire.
And he knew that would have that impact. That's part of his brilliance, is galvanizing and making people feel really good about themselves.
And then we had, Adam Sandler. We had a huge success with the movie he did, Big Daddy.
Yeah, but that was like you elevated his brand to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And then during that period of time, I had any number of different battles or conflicts or discussions with the MPAA, which has to approve marketing material. And I wanted to have Adam and the boy that he's taking care of in that movie peeing against the wall of a building. And they said, well, you can't do that. And
I had to live with that because my husband worked on that for you. He was your senior vice president of creative advertising.
And it was his idea.
Well, you supported him. And obviously then I'd hear about it every night. Like, my God, those sons of guns, they won't let me actually show the pee.
Right. I wanted to do Remember when there were these huge standees in movie theaters, those cardboard things? I wanted to do one where we would have recirculating water acting as pee.
So smart, though.
Yeah, we never got to that level of approval.
I want to stop here for 2 seconds just to talk about some of your philosophy and the kind of precepts that you have always lived by when it comes to marketing. Marketing, not just movies, but anything. And you taught me a great deal about this. It centers on messaging. Can you talk a little bit about why that is so important and why it sort of can't be taught? Like, you could teach digital this, or you can teach how to do a media plan, but the creativity that goes into coming up with the overall strategic messaging of any movie is the most important thing, correct?
I think so. I don't know. It's a mixture of psychology and sociology and understanding what works and doesn't work and keeping it simple. But it's basically the notion of understanding who the potential audience is. We'll just talk about a movie. Who's the potential audience for this movie? And going back to, the work that you have become the epitome of knowledge for is screenings. You learn so much at a research screening of who the potential audience is for a movie that as a marketing person, you're sitting there and saying, that's who it works for. That's who I need to go after. That's who I want in the theater opening weekend. And so you understand who the movie plays for and who the biggest potential is, and then start to discuss what's in the concept. What's a compelling idea for that audience in the movie?
For the largest number of folks, right?
What we became very adept at was, you're talking about an era where network television drove box office, and we were able to create special messaging for special audiences. So we would have, in the case of the animated movies, which is the best story of all of it, we would have a messaging for a father to take a son, a mother to take a daughter, parents to go together, a general audience. Why should an adult male and adult female go to see the movie? We would have kids. We knew that younger kids liked physical comedy, older kids liked verbal comedy. We would create physical and verbal comedy. So we had a specific message for each different audience. And what you did is you also became a student of what worked and didn't work. I remember when we were doing it at Sony, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream had come out before that. And Scream was a different type of horror movie. And we started talking about appealing and making these movies into what I called screamos at that point, appealing to young females who were the audience that made Scream successful versus making it a horror movie. It became a movie you and your girlfriends can come to go to and scream in a theater. Yeah.
You have said good marketing is both instinct and data.
Right.
You still believe that?
Yes, I believe it in the sense that data helps drive instinct. It's what you do with the data. It's how you look at the data.
I mean, you've worked on hundreds of releases, Bob. Which is the one that you are most proud of from?
Oh, my God.
When I say this, let me just clarify, because it's such a hard question. Give me the one movie that you sort of really felt you triumphed, despite the fact that it might have been a difficult movie or difficult material.
That is a hard question, because the movies that were successful in the sense of what I can take credit for marketing were movies that really played well for an audience. I don't know. The easy ones to talk about, I guess, are Pretty Woman, which could have been misunderstood to be a dark R-rated.
Which is what it originally was, correct?
Yeah, it was written very differently than Gary Marshall.
Originally called 3000.
3000, about what he paid a hooker to be with him for the weekend. But we turned it into this movie that mothers took daughters to come see, and we turned it into a celebration of feminine choice.
Absolutely. And an agency.
Right.
Because she ended up calling her own shots.
He thought he was in charge.
Right.
She wound up in charge. And that turned into a number of movies that followed that. I mean, female empowerment. Did Legally Blonde when I joined MGM. They had already positioned Legally Blonde as sort of this ridiculous sort of love story on campus. And it's like, no, female empowerment. Female empowerment became this theme so often. So I think we really turned something that could have been, because remember, Pretty Woman was Julia Roberts' launching pad.
Oh, yeah.
That was the movie. She was known in Hollywood, but she wasn't known as the movie star that she became after that. The other one...
Before you go on, Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to name the movie Princess of the Boulevard,
So
correct?
we kept on talking about, this is a Cinderella movie. This is a Cinderella movie. And Jeffrey had this title because he wanted to change 3000. It was The Princess of the Boulevard. And I said, Jeffrey, that is not a name for this movie, The Princess of the Boulevard.
Why wasn't it?
It just was too precious. It was too little.
It made it smaller in terms of younger.
Yeah, and like princess, that's a Disney word.
So what'd you do?
So back then, Billboard magazine used to publish an annual week-by-week compendium of that year's top 50 singles. So every week you could go through and see what was the single. So I had it back for many years. And I remember early on, there was a movie called Boy Rents Girl with Patrick Dempsey before he was
I worked on that.
Before he was McDreamy.
Yeah.
Boy Rents Girl. What a horrible title for a movie. I said to Jeffrey, that's a horrible title for a movie. He says, well, come up with something better. And I started to go into this thing, and I found this title, Can't Buy Me Love, the Beatles song. The Beatles had recently sold their catalog to Michael Jackson, and he was looking to make money on the catalog. So I was able to buy that title. So I got in and started looking for a title for 3000 and found Pretty Woman. And I got rid of the Oh Pretty Woman because it was Oh Pretty Woman.
And that's the real name of it is Oh Pretty Woman.
Oh Pretty Woman.
So then you go to Gary Marshall. I'll play Gary Marshall. So Bob, what's this some crazy song you got for me, Bob?
Yeah.
What do you mean here?
So as I recall it, and I think I would call it correctly, I loved working with Gary. Gary was one of the great directors to work with.
The best.
The best. Gary, if you needed a scene for a trailer, or you show him the trailer, and you look at the trailer and he says, I got a better scene for you. I got something better. And he would give you a cut that was indeed better than the one you had because you didn't know he had.
Of course.
Other cut. It was great that way. So he says, I don't know what I'm not a filmmaker, but I had seen the movie enough times now. He said, where would I put it? I said, and what about when she's shopping in Rodeo Drive? And it just worked out great.
Wow, that is a great idea. Let me think about that.
Right.
Oh, and she's shopping. We can make it a whole montage.
So then Roy Orbison's widow had to okay it. And she said, well, I'm not okaying a movie. I'm not using that song for a hooker movie. And we showed her the movie, and she said, I love the movie. And she let us use it. And, of course, she's lived off of that for a good period of time.
There are such things as unmarketable movies, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Give me one.
Disorganized crime.
Oh, I did that one, right?
Right.
Yeah, I tested that.
Unmarketable. Heartbreak Hotel.
Okay, keep going. First of all, tell the listeners that you were responsible in large measure for me going to the next level of my career. Tell us about what you remember about that. We're talking 35 years ago?
When I came to Hollywood, I never had any notion whatsoever that Hollywood used as much research as it used. When I was still in Chicago and had agreed to come to Disney, but hadn't, of course, physically changed yet, they were working on an early movie that Jeffrey had inherited called The Journey of Natty Gann. And The Journey of Natty Gann, he sends me to look at, there's 10 green books. What are these green books?
Those were the old NRG reports.
Those were the old NRG reports, NRG being the monopoly in market research and
at that
industry.
Time, yeah.
No one competed in the movie, and they did everything. And, in fact, sat in marketing meetings.
And God forbid you went to another company.
Oh, my God. We keep on going to story after story. So Michael Eisner is going after Jeffrey about, he doesn't particularly like the principles of NRG. We got to find an alternative. And I lined up presentations from 3 major market research companies who all came in and did presentations. And however Joe Farrell did it, that never happened.
He went to Michael or Jeffrey or both?
I think Jeffrey. And I think Jeffrey went to Michael and said, we can't do this.
Well, I got to hand it to him.
So in those days, either Catherine Porter or Joe Farrell, who were the two principals of NRG, came to every research screening and did the groups.
How about came to every marketing meeting that Disney had on Monday morning marketing meeting?
We digress again. Joe had the best deal whatsoever. So Joe's value in the industry and what existed, he knew more than anybody. He knew how every movie played. He knew how every advertising campaign was testing. He knew all of it. But he never really said anything out of school. He would sit in these marketing meetings, and I never saw Joe in anything else other than a suit. And Jeffrey would say, well, we ought to release that on September 6th. And when he'd look at Joe, and Joe would bring out his market out of his thing.
His little paper. He had this tiny little paper, tiny little writing.
He'd look at it, and he'd go, And just a little facial gesture. And Jeffrey said, well, maybe not September 6th. And that was, and he sort of did that for everybody. So he helped everybody make the right decisions without really giving anything away, but giving a lot away.
Two movies that come to mind that were really challenging. I remember I Love Trouble.
I Love Trouble.
That was truly a feathered fish movie. Didn't know what it wanted to be.
It was cast that the cast would carry it. The cast could overcome this.
And that was Julia Roberts and
Nick Nolte. And sort of an action movie, sort of a love story. There was no chemistry between them. I think she hated him, as I recall the story. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Or he hated her, but there was no chemistry. And that was Nancy Myers and Charles Shire at that point.
Oh, yeah. What a misstep.
But Joe and Catherine did every screening. One time I was having a marketing screening to learn more about the movie. It wasn't for the filmmakers. It was for me.
Tutorial.
And Joe said, Catherine, well, we can't make it that night, but we got this great guy who's come in, here. And great. If you say he's great. And you showed up to do the group afterwards. And I was blown away how good you were. I mean, it was like, whoa, this is fresh. And I said to them, anytime that you guys are not available or whatever, more than happy to use Kevin.
That was great. And great for me. Yeah. The other person that really also helped me at another studio was, of course, Tom Sherrick at Fox. Very, very supportive. One time I remember he called Joe and Catherine and said, you need to give Kevin Goetz a raise. And Catherine called me up. I have to talk to her about this. She'll probably remember. And said, did you talk to Tom Sherrick? I said, no. He said, oh, okay, well, he wants us to pay you more, and we're going to. And I said, great. The other movie I was thinking when you were at Sony, I Love Trouble was Disney, but then at Sony was What Planet Are You From?
Totally unmarketable movie. And the story goes, it was also the biggest money-losing movie in Columbia history. Mike Nichols, friend of John Calley, makes this movie starring
May they both rest in peace.
The movie starring Gary Shandling for a lot of money. Big director's fee, big production fee. And the movie essentially is Gary Shandling's an alien who is sent to the Earth to determine how the species procreate and how it can help his planet, which is dying, go on. And the hook of the movie is that every time he gets sexually excited, his sexual organ buzzes.
God.
And it's embarrassing, all that. Well, as much as I could fight the MPAA, I could never reveal that. So the very conceit of the movie is unmarketable.
Another one of Neil's, by the way. I think, who got summarily asked to step off the movie because no advertising was working.
Did not go well. Another one that just circumstances hit. When I got to MGM.
MGM was your third studio stop. You were there for about 4 years also, right?
Right.
And what were you going to say about MGM?
So I walk in, Legally Blonde, huge success. And then we started working on Wind Talkers. John Woo directed movie about the Navajo code talkers in the Pacific during World War II. And their code talking was key to a lot of the victories because the Japanese couldn't break the Navajo code.
How was the code communicated again?
They used the Navajo language, which they couldn't translate. And so the movie starred Nicolas Cage as a protector of a wind talker and had huge battle scenes, but was really a difficult sell in that Nick dies at the end. It doesn't have much code talking actually in it, and it just looks like a war movie. I mean, just a lot of battle scenes.
Generic.
It was to be released in November of 2001, and of course, the Twin Towers happens in that year. And the decision was to pull the movie, and the movie was released a year and a half later and was just old news to everybody at that point. It failed, and of course, the marketing guy took the hit. You know the 3 envelope story? Is anyone?
Please tell us the 3 envelope story. It's a famous story that all my listeners should know.
So the new chairman of the studio comes into his large office, or her large office, and there is the huge mahogany desk in the middle of the office, and the place is bare, except on the desk are 3 envelopes marked number 1, number 2, and number 3. And there's a little note above it: when first in trouble, open envelope number 1. Put them all in your desk drawer. Eventually, as happens in every studio, the word goes out that he's in trouble or she's in trouble, gets envelope number 1 out, and it says, fire your head of marketing. Your head of marketing is always your first person to go, always the source of all troubles at a studio. Everything that doesn't work is your head of marketing's fault.
And when it succeeds?
It's not your head of... Well, in some... I got a lot of credit. I can't say that.
Well, it's typically their own brilliance.
I can't say
Production's
that.
brilliance, yeah.
So then, as the story goes along, fires the head of marketing, next gets in trouble and takes out envelope number 2 as described, and it says, fire your head of production. So now the production head is gone, the marketing head is gone, but you get in trouble again, opens envelope number 3, and it says, make out 3 envelopes.
That's so great. I love that. When we come back, we're going to talk to Bob about what I like to call Act 3, which would be Screen Engine. We'll be back in a moment. Listeners, the Motion Picture and Television Fund is a nonprofit charitable organization that supports working and retired members of the entertainment community. This wonderfully run organization offers assistance for living and aging with dignity and purpose in the areas of health and social services, including temporary financial assistance, case management, and residential living, and has been a crucial lifeline to thousands during and beyond critical times that our industry continues to experience. To learn more, visit mptf.com. Please join me in helping others in our industry during times of need. There are so many ways to offer support and get involved. Thank you. We're back with Bob Levin. Bob, how did I convince you to take the leap and come out of, I think, semi-retirement at that point to join me on my journey with Screen Engine, I guess almost 16 years ago?
So I was the worst semi-retired person, and I wasn't very good at it, and I never was going to be any good at it. And I did some volunteering, and I was board chair for an independent school and staying busy. But at that point in time, as I recall, you were at OTX.
Yes, you're right.
Chris Meledandri had left Blue Sky, where he was responsible for Ice Age, and had been funded by Universal to set up Illumination. And he was just getting started, and he looked to you as a huge value to him and his success with Blue Sky and with all the Ice Age movies. And instead of wanting you at the end of the process, he wanted you at the beginning of the process, in the very early stages of developing what was then called Evil Me. Mm-hmm. And it was just in the talking stage. And you suggested that maybe he would like to have me involved because of all my animation experience. So I came in as a consultant.
Oh, I do remember that. That was about
for you at OTX.
That was about 18 years ago, I guess, right?
And working with Chris and you and his team on Evil Me.
He showed us initial character renderings. I remember he took us through the story, which we thought was quite cute. We were concerned a little bit that young boys, there was maybe not going to be enough action for them because there were 3 little girl characters. Of course, there was Gru, but then we also were pretty hard on him, if I remember, about the ending. It needed to do this, it needed to do that, it needed to do that at the end. And that really was very, very helpful to him. But we formed a different kind of working relationship, you and I do remember that at the right time, I said, Bob, this is silly. When I started the new company, I'm like, you need to come on.
Right. So I continued as a consultant for a while, and that was
Not
2010. And I continued as a consultant, and then in 2013, you said, would you just come on and President and help me run this place? And that was the start. I just think matched up from the beginning so well.
And your beautiful wife was very helpful, Hildy.
Hildy was very encouraging about doing this, and said, I don't want you around the house during the day.
She said, you're going to be like Fred Mertz.
Oh, yeah, sitting around. Yeah, no, she was very encouraging, and it just turned out to be a spectacular combination of 2 very, very different people, but in some ways very similar people.
Exactly. I think we share great values that are very similar. We also are very creative.
Right.
And I think that combination really has served us quite well. Aren't you proud about what we've done?
Oh, I think it's amazing what we've done. For those who don't know it, Screen Engine started in Kevin's living room of his house and was the Hail Mary pass of an entrepreneur. Kevin cashed in everything, cashed in the 401ks, used credit cards, wherever, did not have an investor, but took it on. And there were some people he just put together in his living room, and he was off and running. And within the first year had done close to $6 million in revenue,
Yeah, that
which
was
is
something else.
Unheard of to be able to build that kind of business. And from them, through acquisitions and just growth, and by the way, have survived some very difficult times in the business. You know, the pandemic closed down all in-person screenings. And I remember you calling us all into a room saying, Manhattan Project time, we have to have a way to do online screening that is secure within 3 months, I think you gave it, or something. There was some ridiculous time.
And we did it.
And it was done with a lot of people really working, and then hard to get it done, and it saved that business at that point in time. And then when we hit the strikes and all production stopped, to be able to get through that, it wasn't easy, but we did it. And
proud of it. And it's fair to say also that part of what you helped me to navigate was not being so dependent on the movie business. I remember you coming into my office maybe 13 years ago or something and saying, ASI, that preview house up on Sunset, it's available, I think, to buy.
Yeah,
Any interest? I said, no. Wait, Bob, come back. What would that, ASI, huh? That's with the dials? Yeah. Huh. That could be interesting. Well, let's investigate it.
Well, you remember what we had learned up until then. So you were great at getting meetings, and you got us meetings with television people.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to the meetings, and the standard meeting was, you guys are really nice guys. You've had great success in the movie business. You're really good people, but you're not TV people. Couldn't get a chance.
Yeah, we needed something to establish us firmly in the TV business. That did it. It was the greatest thing ever. I remember taking another swing by personally guaranteeing a loan for that whole business acquisition. So I still owned 100% of the company at that point.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about what I've done that way and having my supportive husband behind me to do it is really extraordinary.
Well, because Kevin, you are a true entrepreneur from way back when, from you starting your dance school when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And who's the teenager who's got a
I have
dance
a great
and
story.
actor school?
And I started at the lemonade stand.
The
before
lemonade
that.
stand?
No. So this last weekend, I'm driving up Rexford from Beverly Hills, and on the corner of Rexford and I think Carmelita or Elevado is a young boy selling lemonade. I pass, I go about a quarter of a mile, I do a U-turn, I come all the way back, and I pull up in front, and I said, "How much for a glass of lemonade?" He said, $2. I said, $2? I said, "Okay, I'll take 2. Gave him a 5. I said, "This is for you as a tip for doing such good service." Wow. I said, "Thank you so much, and keep making money. Make it for the right price. And you make a profit. Prices in the grocery stores have gone up." "Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir." All right. And went off, and I felt very good about acknowledging and supporting his entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned from you is I came up in more or less the corporate world and the way the corporate people think about things and corporate structure and all of that. And you are a pure entrepreneur from back to the lemonade stand day.
It was my acting days, right. Correct? I mean, you had to self-promote. You're an actor. No one's doing it for you. Right. You're putting yourself on the line every time. I have such respect for actors going out there, being vulnerable, putting yourself on the line and being told no and no and no and no. And finally you get one yes and you're like encouraged to go to the next step.
But what I've learned that I find interesting is I never heard the term before you used the term gut brain.
Stomach brain or gut brain.
Yeah. And corporations very much are lined up in brain, not gut brain. And successful entrepreneurs, I think, like you, have a really good gut brain. And entrepreneurs who aren't that successful find out they don't.
Well, I was just going to ask you, you literally answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You've been part of both massive corporations and a growing entrepreneurial business. What leadership lessons translate between those two worlds?
Well, it goes back to, I remember a meeting at Disney where Disney had established by this time a very strong corporate strategy group, and they were the big thinkers in the studio. And we had a lot of retreats at Disney and a lot of off-campus retreats. And one retreat for the movie business, corp strat guys came in and after the review of the business said, "Well, we understand that hits drive the business. So just make hits."
That's an old famous.
Well,
did Michael say it?
No, the one of the corp strat people.
What a genius idea!
What a genius idea! So it's that kind of thinking that every problem has an arithmetic solution to it. Every problem can be analyzed down to the depth. Where an entrepreneur says, "I got enough information. Let's move forward," versus spend the next year. Right. And if you're the right entrepreneur, it works. If you don't, you're not the right person.
I want to segue to our book, How to Score in Hollywood. I'm very proud of it. It comes out November 11th from Simon & Schuster. It's, I think, a really good read, and it's an important read for many different constituents, I think, that could find value from it. Tell me what you think about the book, why you got initially involved with the book.
I don't remember how I got involved. I think we just talked about, would you like to write the next book with me or do the next book?
But I mean, I had this idea about, because Audienceology, which I co-wrote with Darlene Hayman, really focused on the screenings, the playability.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to, if you remember, talk about the capability, which you coined, by the way.
Right.
I remember where you coined it, in this conference room when we were renting a shared space. And I said, we need to come up with a name that measures concepts, but not call it concept testing, and more rigor around the pre-green light stage. And you said, capability. How capable is something?
Right. Which is an element of the book. I think what we eventually got around to is there is a real story to be told through the practitioners of the business. And I mean producers, studio executives. How do you actually get to the point where someone says, yeah, I'll put money behind that. We're going to make that movie. What are all the dynamics that go through that? You lifted the curtain in the first book behind the whole idea of how research at screenings helps make movies more playable. We also had marketability, buzzability, but capability. So it's bigger than just the research here and the way this book is written. But I think the notion, what got me interested deeper and deeper as we wrote into it. And there were things that we tossed away and did with because it went down a rabbit hole. I think it's a really good behind-the-scenes read for anyone who's sort of interested in the entertainment business and how IP and ideas are developed and things gain the strength for people to put money behind it. But I also thought that it had a lot of information for other businesses. One of the things about the entertainment business...
How so?
Well, because the entertainment business, it can be challenged for lots of reasons. But it is, as far as a business goes, the most creative business in the world is entertainment, be it music, be it movies, be it TV, be it now podcasts or creator economy content. It is built on creativity.
You bet.
And how to understand that creativity and how you move from the pure creative soul to something that can work as a business enterprise and return an investment and that kind of things, and how you can think through ideas. And I think the book just gives insights that can be used in other businesses.
Anyone starting a business, you must take a sober look at what you have. Not only what you have, but how many people are going to buy into that? What's the size of your audience? That's not about movies. That's about any new product being launched.
So, it's the line that we sort of talk about the book as being every movie, if made and marketed for the right price, should make money. You can take that same concept. Every toothbrush, if made and marketed for the right price, should make money.
Well, that's why I was laughing about the lemonade stand with the little boy.
Right.
I was like, every lemonade stand, if made and marketed for the right price, should make money. How much are your lemons? What's the sugar? How much are those cups? You have a table set up there, too. And I see you have a little assistant over there. You paying that assistant? From your perspective, Bob, what's the biggest misconception people have about how success really works in Hollywood?
Well, it depends your source of information. I think that for some people, they would say today, it's all Nepo baby. It's who you know. Can't even get in that industry without who you know. I think the thing that I have learned, bedrock, I think it is a talent play in anything. Are you talented at marketing? Are you talented at acting? Are you talented at directing? Are you talented at producing? Whatever, are you talented at production design, costume, man, whatever it is at any stage, do you have the talent to succeed? You may have the connections. You may have the ability to get your first job, but to have a lasting career and be successful and put food on your table for your family, you have to have talent to succeed in this business. So in the end, I think people can say, well, that person's not very talented because I don't like rap music. Well, you don't know rap music and what talent is.
Exactly. So you ask people. I was going to ask you, you've spent your career shaping how audiences experience movies. What have audiences taught you?
They are absolutely pure in their responses. You cannot like the way they respond as the creator. You can say, well, they're stupid or they don't know what's funny and all, but they're just acting in purity for what they see and what they react to.
Someone asked me recently, have you ever been wrong? About a movie. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'm wrong every day of my life in some form or fashion, but the audience is never wrong. They're just giving you their feelings. So unless you want to discount feelings, and feelings are just feelings, they have no judgment on them, they are never wrong. They're just telling you how they are taking this in. And by the way, they just come there to be entertained to a screening, let's say. They want to like it. They don't want to have given their time and not like it. So for them to be led to tell you what's wrong with it is actually a pretty big deal. If you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of studio executives or filmmakers in general regarding what we do, what would you say?
Boy, I think you have to be very open-minded and curious about the world, what's going on in the world. I don't mean a political sense only. I think you have to have a curiosity and a desire to understand people, to understand what people are reacting to, to not see yourself in a slot of, I'm in the movie business, or I'm in the TV business, or I'm in the music business. You're in the attention economy.
The attention economy.
Where people have more ways to be entertained and to consume their time. And when you realize that YouTube is now getting more attention than any other single platform entity putting out entertainment, and it's all very short form, does that mean the death of long form? I don't think so. You're challenged to be, again, going back to the audience, I think the challenge is to respect the audience. Don't be cynical about the audience. Don't be skeptical. Don't think, oh, well, this will entertain. Try to do something that is great, what everyone talks about, great storytelling. I think as long as you're telling a story, whether it's in 5 minutes or 2 hours, as long as you tell a great story, the audiences will be with you.
And understanding dramatization, not just words, but really understanding character, getting behind those characters. That's the universality of why we love movies so much, don't you think?
Absolutely. You know, I learned a lot over my years because I wasn't a film student person or and all of that when I came in here. And I would watch people react in movies. And I once came to the conclusion, rightfully or wrongfully, people come into a movie looking to identify with a character. And someone up on that screen they're looking to identify with, they either look at it and say, that's someone who I would like to be like, or that's someone who really understands my life as it is. And I'm seeing my life up there and I'm feeling a connection. I'm not alone in my life. There's other people sharing the same struggles or relations or whatever as I am.
Relatability.
The relatability. Or, boy, that's a place I'd like to go to. Even in its total fantasy, even if it's the superhero or Superman. Boy, wouldn't that be exciting if you could be Superman, you know?
Looking back on your whole career, what are you most proud of?
I think I want to go back to a phrase you use because I think it's about life as well. I think I did the job ethically. I think I did the job with the right kind of values, which I think you bring into work and life wherever you are. I say to my wife, Hildy, you know, she says, what do we have in common? What do we have in common? And I said, we have values and ethics.
You and Hildy?
Yeah.
Oh, so much.
We have value and ethics.
You guys have been so wonderful for each other because you have grounded Hildy in a way because she loves life and loves to live life. And she's given you this energy and this enthusiasm for life.
But, you know, grounded value and ethics, I think you have to have a great deal of respect in yourself and what you do.
It's a good answer. What continues to excite you about this industry? Last night I was at a dinner party and this gentleman, probably in his early to mid 80s, was lamenting the fact that movies are over. And I said, au contraire, movies are great. I said, you're only seeing the small number of films that are in your sphere because you're not being reached anymore to know that there are hundreds of movies in different countries that are so brilliant. And then not to mention television and the quality of television. There's just so much of it. And you're not meant to love it all. It's cutting through the noise to try to reach you. And I started to rattle off some names. And it was like, he said, well, I should check that out. I should check that out. I said, I refuse to believe that. And so he said he picked a year. He picked 1972, I believe, Godfather year. And Neil was there and he pulled up the movies of that year. And you heard Poseidon Adventure, Please Don't Eat the Daisies, Cabaret, Godfather, and Last Tango in Paris. But just like today, you have 3 or 4 important movies, and then movies that are more fluff or more entertainment-driven.
Yeah. I think there's a real marketing challenge today. You know, we can go back pre-television when people went to the movies. It was just, you went to the movies. That's what you did on a weekend.
You went to the movies.
You didn't go to a movie. You went to the movies. And you discovered movies you never would have seen before.
That's 100%
and that
right.
You were lifted up by him. And then
there was a nostalgia.
There was a nostalgia.
There was a feeling that you got.
Right.
And it was an exciting feeling, wasn't it?
Right.
And I think you can still get it, but you get it more few and far between.
So where I'm going is that time was over. And then came the advent of network television driving movies business. And the movie business exploded, and people started going to a movie and discovered things that marketing got them to go see, and they were excited and they were elevated again. Marketing is more challenging today than it's ever been because you can't gather those audiences you used to.
You hopeful for the future?
Well, yeah, I think if people will do the work, I think the marketing side still has to figure out what do you do when you don't have network television. But I think also...
What do you do in terms of what we call reach and frequency?
Reach and frequency. But I want to get to the other point that I think audiences have become lazy. I think the proliferation of so much content on so many different streamers and then going to a movie versus going to a streamer and the costs involved in all of that, it's like you sit down and go, what's on tonight? It's almost like people aren't really searching or trying to find what's really out there. Like you say, there's movies being made all over the world. But do we just default to the easiest thing?
That was what I was telling the gentleman at the dinner party. Do a little work, you'll find they exist.
So I'm saying lazy audiences are blaming the content producers versus blaming themselves.
How do you want your legacy to be remembered?
I've tried to be a mentor to lots of people, and I hope that I accomplish that and that I live on through those people I've mentored who've had their own successes. I've never been someone seeking credit for what I've done. I've never been out there as a self-promoter, and probably and a few other people know my contribution to lots of the success that other people take credit for. So I can live in that world. I feel good about what I did. I know what I accomplished. I'd like to be remembered as a good person to work with and a good person to work for, and being honest and straightforward. And there's a great story, that Neil tells about when he was at Sony, and he'd be afraid to get on an elevator if the doors opened and I was already on the elevator. And I think
he didn't know what to talk to you about.
And I think when I go through, it wasn't that I was mean or an asshole as a boss. I expected people to perform at a very high standard, and I still do that today,
Indeed. Bob, I'm so grateful for you to have finally come on the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
The timing is very fortuitous because we are both going to be promoting the book in a big way. So you've got to put on that self-promotion hat because you deserve it with your contributions to this book and to the contributions you've made over the last almost 40 years in the entertainment business. We are so appreciative of you, for you, and I have a particular place that you will always live in my heart.
Well, same here. You know that.
Thank you. To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more insights into filmmaking, audience testing, and the business of Hollywood, I invite you to check out my books, Audienceology and How to Score in Hollywood, at Amazon or through my website at kevingoetz360.com. You can also follow me on my social media. Until then, I'm Kevin Goetz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.